I think, yeah, maybe I am just innately, yeah, I do. I love the little details. I do actually love the little details. I just find like, I'm just so amazed by like sometimes all the little things that you see, and just that kind of attention to just the small things. And yeah, sometimes the little things in life are what brings you joy.
And was this a research that was crowdfunded? And if you can, like, I found that very interesting. So if you can tell us a little bit about what is crowdfunding and how did you fund this particular project?
Yeah, so yeah, that was really exciting. So I actually, in the second last year of my PhD, 2017, I actually no, third last. So I crowdfunded my research project on experiment.com. So there's lots of websites you can use to crowdfund your research project. But I selected experiment.com because it was more to do with like science specifically, whereas Kickstarter and things like that, they can be more generic, and they have science categories as well, so that can be useful. But I did want to target an audience that were looking for something very science specific. And so that was really fascinating to use this tool to see if I could reach a broader audience. And so me and my lab mates, we created this video, which is really cool. And yeah, I'm really like proud of that video because that was able to explain exactly what cataract is, what we're doing in our lab in terms of our research in signaling pathways. And then basically see if people want to fund us. The amazing thing is that we were successful in getting funded. And the thing with crowdfunding, which I didn't realize until I started it, is you have to reach your goal. So if you, if you don't reach your goal, you don't actually get the money.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So does it go back to the people who donated it?
Yeah, exactly. It does. So you have to surpass that goal in order to get. I've been talking for a lot, so I'm gonna get some water.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah, sure. No problem. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really fascinating that you were able to crowdfund your research. Like, has this been done by other universities? Are there other students who've done this successfully for the research?
Well, yeah, so surprisingly, yes, there have been quite a few. I actually reached out to 2 that were successful just to get some inspiration and ask some questions about how they approached it. The biggest tip was that you need to create the video that's very engaging, because that was a selling point to kind of engage and kind of get the attention of a broad audience. And it's easier to explain sort of your research when it is a video with kind of photos of you in the lab doing research. This is kind of an insider sort of look into what sort of things you do behind the scenes. So that was a big part. And then constantly posting it on different social media websites as well. And that is another way of just ensuring that they were like, you know, make sure you just post it every week, you know, have a regular schedule for that. So because that's a thing, like they were saying, like, you know, people might think, oh, okay, I want to fund that, but at this point in time, like, I'm busy, so they might forget about it. So then just having that constant reminder as well is really important. Establishing that kind of routine of reposting your crowdfunding, and that is how, like, pretty much like I got past the budget and was able to be funded successfully. So yeah, because otherwise, as I said, like, you won't get it. So my budget was $2,000. If I got $1,999, unfortunately, it wouldn't have been funded.
Oh,
so
wow.
But yeah, so that's the thing, isn't it? So fortunately I surpassed it. I got like 2,600, which was pretty amazing. Yeah, so but the thing is, I think the concept behind that is more of a collaborative thing, because it becomes, once you're in it, you have, as a sponsor and donor to that crowdfunding campaign, you become part of that mission to ensure that it does get funded. And I feel like that's part of that, having to reach that 2,000 is sort of just a collective effort at that point when you sign it. So it's not just on me, but rather everyone who's a donor and supporter of me can be in to enhance that process and just ensure that it does hit that ultimate budget.
We're discussing about all these things. I see a pattern that you've been more interested in the hows and the whys of any kind of a disease or like a mechanism. Was this curiosity a source of inspiration to take up research? And similarly, how did you get into science communication?
Yeah, I'm amazed that you picked that up. I didn't even know that I was that curious about these questions, and that was sort of like an underlying parallel in all of these avenues that I've delved into. I think, maybe I am just innately, I do. I love the little details. I do actually love the little details. I just find like I'm just so amazed by like sometimes all the little things that you see, and just that kind of attention to just the small things. And yeah, sometimes the little things in life are what brings you joy. Yeah, science communication has certainly been a really big part of my life. It all started with actually in the second year of my PhD, where I listened to this workshop. And this workshop was done by, so it was very interesting. Okay, so I'm in, we get these emails obviously about these seminars that are happening in our university. And my lab mate, Shannon, was like, oh, I saw that too. Do you want to attend? And I'm like, oh yeah, why not? And it was, the workshop was on advocating for yourself, self-promotion. And it's something that is kind of like, you don't want to brag too much, it's sort of like how we've been trained as, from our youth. So I think like that was really a pinnacle moment for me when I attended this workshop. He's run this workshop in different countries, and also he's from Adelaide in South Australia. So he's an Australian, but he gives these talks, and he's actually a researcher himself. But he realized that self-promotion was actually really critical, and he does a lot of workshops too, like for work-life balance as well. So yeah, he's pretty good, and I'll link that because I have to remember exactly what his name is. But he's very active on Twitter as well. So he basically gave us this talk and gave us a worksheet as well on literally all the things we could be doing outside of research. And it ranged from exactly this: being on a podcast, doing blog posts, getting a Twitter account, setting up an Instagram, writing to newspapers and talking about your research, writing articles online to talk about your research and submitting that to science-related magazines. So these are all things, and I was like, oh my God, there's so many things I could be doing outside of just strictly doing experiments. Academia. Academia. So I was like so fascinated about this, and he was like, oh, you got to build your online presence. And I literally went home that night, and I set up a Twitter account. So my Twitter account is actually like, if you dated to its setup date is to 2015 or something like that. But the thing is, I never posted anything until 2017. It was actually the crowdfunding campaign that really inspired me to start basically, getting more active, because I realized that how am I going to get funded if I don't have a presence online? So that was a critical thing. And that, and the ARVO Science Communication Training Fellowship that I did in 2017, that instilled me with a lot of those skills to build that confidence to communicate science and speak to a broader audience about science. And so I started posting more on Twitter, and I guess the rest is history, because I've been posting ever since, and I'm really passionate about that, about just like sharing a little insight into exactly what it's like to be a scientist, and sort of distilling some of the myths of what like science is about, like, because there are a lot of sort of outdated concepts of what a scientist looks like. That's another hashtag what a scientist looks like, because at the end of the day, science is a really broad thing, especially in molecular biology, and just in general. There's so many disciplines within science, and our concept of like what a scientist looks like has evolved so much, and being able to share that, share, you know, what kind of random experiments I get up to during the week, is something really exciting. And also building that online community, I think, of people who are just intrigued by science, who aren't scientists, but just are very just innately intrigued about what it's like to be a scientist, potentially inspiring high school students to pursue a career of science, because they don't know what it's like to be a scientist. As a high school student, I didn't know what it was like. To be, and certainly your line of research as well is very exciting, and just to be as a scientist myself, I'm intrigued by your research as well, and I'm very fortunate to be able to have participated in it and get that insight into sort of what sort of day-to-day that you get up to as well as a scientist. And because at the end of the day, we just publish the paper, but we don't know that kind of story behind it. And so I love giving that insight. And the amazing thing is, on Twitter especially, there's a great, and on Instagram, I must say, on Instagram as well, there's a great science community, and we're constantly like kind of supporting each other, I feel. And it's a great supportive environment, and everyone's just like congratulating each other on accomplishments, cheering each other up if something goes wrong, and giving each other motivational, you know, statements and things like that, just to boost our morale. And also, even if you have questions about protocols and methodologies, if you actually ask Twitter, you might get a faster response than anywhere else, amazingly. And then you can tap into that that collective body of knowledge online, which is incredible. A lot of great tips.
No, I've done that. Like, I've had questions about, you know, coding the languages that, you know, we might need to learn for research purposes. So there were a couple of questions that I had, and I think I used academic Twitter, academic chatter. These are two things that I really, those hashtags on Twitter, and they were really helpful. Like, I probably within a day I received 300 plus responses, which was very overwhelming, but that's
amazing.
Like, you have information at your disposal, right? So that was pretty fascinating. And I was also going to ask you about how important it is for scientists to make their online presence, but I think you've already covered that in this. But if someone wants to start, you know, building an online presence, what are some tips? Like, what can they start with if they want to, just like baby steps, if they want to start with building their platform?
So one thing is to start a Twitter account, and Instagram as well. Mostly Twitter. If you had to pick something, 100% pick Twitter, because the science community there is a lot larger, and I would say it spans more career development stages. I feel like it spans more of the, you know, the more senior researchers are available on Twitter, and not so much on Instagram, I feel. So sort of like more of the kind of more junior researchers or sort of students that are on Instagram. That's what I'm seeing as a trend. However, I do see a lot of PIs actually on Instagram as well. So that's fantastic as well. So that's great. And I think it's just the nature of Twitter. It's like easy to share links to papers and things like that. Whereas Instagram, you can't really click a caption link. You have to laboriously type it in or have a link to in your bio, for example. So it's not as easy to share those things. So Twitter is probably the mode of choice for social media for scientists, I would say. So definitely start that. And then from there, start to build it. Because for me, I started my Twitter and I was very active on Twitter, but I wasn't very active. I hadn't started my Instagram equivalent account because I had my personal Instagrams accounts and all of that. So I didn't think, and I had my lens specific at the time of Lens Research Lab, I had created that Instagram account. So I was working heavily on adding different content to that. But ultimately, I started my own Instagram account because at the end of the day, whilst you're contributing to a lab handle, it's also good to contribute to your own personal handle, because that will follow you throughout your career. As you transition to your next career stage, you will have to, create a new Twitter account or new Instagram account. So that's why it's good to have your base one. And then you can contribute to your lab one as well as needed. So you can cross kind of post different things that are relevant to you as well. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just important to ensure that you have your own personal, professional Twitter and Instagram accounts.
Right.
And then from there you can start, as you have your fantastic podcast and blogging, and the list goes on for what you could do. But just as a base, starting your Twitter, I think, is a great idea.
Yeah, it also gives you, I've seen I got my idea for a podcast because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and also the science community on Twitter, like you just pointed out, is it's very informative and also gives you more confidence. And you can reach out to anyone you want using a hashtag, or if you specifically know someone, you can just reach out and get tips. So yeah, I definitely see Twitter as a good avenue to start off with. And what about blogging? Like I've seen people blog specifically, like if someone is actively maybe like someone at the level of PI, like a principal investigator, because they have years of experience and wealth of knowledge, I think they have a lot to contribute. But as a student, or like someone who's like, who's just starting their career, they might not have a lot to offer in terms of writing. So I've seen people, they invite other PhD students or other researchers. So they have a common blog, which serves like a magazine, and they invite people to write for them. So that's also another very good platform to like build skills and build a good platform for your science communication passion projects. Yeah, and I like this particular question. I asked this to all my guests who were specifically science communicators. What is your idea of science communication? How do you perceive it?
I perceive science communication as a means of communicating scientific concepts. But that's probably a very broad stroke explanation. Like deep down, I do think it is that insight into the behind the scenes of what happens, beyond the kind of very didactic kind of very heavy jargon journal articles that we write. It is that insight into the kind of like digestible version of it. So that's ultimately what I think science communication is, to be able to any audience, any age, any background, any level of understanding of science, being able to tailor that communication to them.
Yeah. And what are your ongoing projects? Like, what are your projects that you're currently working on? I know I've listed a few during your introduction, but what are the varied, diverse projects that you're working on besides your ongoing postdoctoral research?
So my science communication projects, so a lot of them are intertwined with the committee work that I do. So I'm currently serving on various committees, from from the Harvard Medical Postdoc Association, where I'm the communications chair. So I'm responsible for just, posting to social media, building that online presence. But also I've done a couple of fun projects as part of that, showcasing some of the talents outside of research. So I created the HMPA cookbook, postdoc recipes. So amazingly, a lot of postdocs in the Harvard Medical School community are actually great cooks. So that was fantastic. Yeah. So I can link you to that later. So it is a great kind of resource, and something that I can refer to as well when I'm in need of a recipe idea. And it's great because it's very diverse, very multicultural, as you probably noticed in the Harvard Medical School postdoc community. I think that it's really exciting that there's just a diverse range of like international researchers that come here, and so that's reflected in the cookbook. With all these delicious recipes. So that was a really exciting form of just spreading that, like that kind of concept of, there's more to us than just, our papers and experiments. Also did the lab mask selfies, because at the time of, especially in 2020, during lockdown, and as we opened up and we're wearing masks in the lab, I was encouraging a lot of of our postdoc community to just take a quick selfie in the lab. And that was not only just to promote them and showcase that, they're working hard in the lab and what lab they're part of, but also just kind of collectively building that like sense of community, because we weren't really able to kind of talk to each other. So it was more very online kind of engagements and things like that. I also serve on the ISA, so that's the International Society for Eye Research. I'm the Young Investigator Representative. And as part of that role, I started the ISA YI blog. So that's been really exciting. And we've got a range of various topics that from how to be a parent and be a postdoc as well, how to start social media and build a following, and all of these tips. There's such a diverse range. And so that's another big fun project of mine, to be able to build on that kind of blog. And yeah, so there's a couple of fun things. The other thing that I am currently doing that's very exciting is the Behind Our Science podcast. So it's a plug for our podcast. And that's been really fun. That's with it's supported by the American Society for Investigative Pathology, ASIP, and also the Histochemical Society, HSC. So it's been fantastic that they've been giving us a lot of support to build our podcast, which we started this year and pushed out 7 episodes this year. And there's 3 other co-hosts, Marina, Vic, and Roberto, and they are fantastic and just equally passionate like us about science communication. So I think, those projects have been keeping me pretty busy. But then again, 2022, maybe I'll try to do more of this, and maybe some other new projects on the horizon. I do want to kind of broaden all the things that I do in terms of science communication. So even science advocacy as part of the Alliance for Eye and Vision Research, the Emerging Vision Scientists program, where we talk to congressional staffers of the US to actually talk about how important it is to fund eye research in particular. So that's something I did this year, and then that's something that that program I think is going to keep running. So highly recommend it. Now I'll link you that as well, because I think it's a great thing. It was a very new experience for me, because I've never talked to like congressional staffers. So for me, it was we had a lot of training and meetings of, how to approach that, what kind of all the steps, and we even had talking points that we needed to talk about, like in terms of how much the NEI, the National Eye Institute branch of the NIH, how much funding are they getting relative to all the different years, and how much that's increasing. And the unfortunate thing is whilst the value of the funding has increased, it hasn't caught up with the inflation. So the purchasing power of what we're able to buy with the money that we are funded currently is equivalent to something in like 10 years ago or that, because it hasn't caught up with inflation. And that was one of the really big points that we were told to kind of really tackle that point particularly, and yeah, ensure that hopefully we can increase the NEI funding for into the future.
That's all fascinating and very interesting. Did you take up any specific training, or are there online courses to understand the nuances of science communication and, like, advocacy and all its other the different prongs of science communication? Because I think it's too broad to just say that, okay, this is, I don't think there's a defined role for it, but like you can apply that to any part of research or any part of your work. But are there any specific specialty training of, like, online courses that people can take just to understand this?
Currently, I know of the ARVO Science Communication Training Fellowship, and yeah, you're aware of that one. And I think that is a really great place to start, at least. But in terms of other workshops, there are a handful of these science communication ones. So the one that I had, forgotten, but now I've just remembered, the I Think Well Hugh, he's the one that got me started and inspired me back in 2015. So I think Well Hugh is definitely a huge one to go to. And he basically had the whole list of all the things we could be doing to promote ourselves and our science outside of the lab. So I think that's a great starting point as well. I think Well Hugh.
Okay, I'm going to link that to this podcast so people.
Definitely. Is
it just eye related, or is it
it's
like
Yeah, so that one isn't eye related. So that one is any discipline of science, even outside of science, even in the social sciences as well. I'd say, like just anything in general. If anything, it can be applied to anybody, just in any career, to be quite honest, because it's all about promoting yourself. Even if you're an accountant, I guess you could even try to blog about accounting and like tips on accounting. So like it can apply to anybody, because it's, at the end of the day, self-promotion, although it sounds like something we shouldn't be doing, it is actually just, it is something that we need to feel comfortable about and grow our confidence in doing so. And yeah, the point about like doing these things that promote our science is not so much promoting our science as much as it is sharing that science with the broader community, being able to tell the world about all the great scientific discoveries that we're making, and to be able to share that with others and get ideas from those people, because there is such an amazing, curious, intellectual community out there that are I don't know if you've ever like watched a video and or like a post on social media, and it'll be like, I came here for the comments. I don't know if you've seen that.
That's me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so that's
me.
the thing that, yeah, exactly. And I literally am that person, like, I came here for the comments, because I actually get more out of the comments sometimes. That's tapping into that broader community that are just amazingly intelligent and inspiring, and they have so many thoughtful comments that can aid in your research. And so you kind of go through those, and you can tap into an amazing potential of information that you didn't even realize, you hadn't even thought about that. And they can pop up in the comments. So I think that's another reason why self-promotion, but sharing that science with everybody is such a great thing.
I have one last question before we wrap this up. What is your take on women in science? Like, there's a lot of activities going on, and there's women, and most of the speakers that I've had, or the most active voice on Twitter in the field of science is being women these days, and it's great. It's really great. So what is your take on it, and how what has been your experience as a woman in science?
Yeah, it's been fantastic as a woman in science in this era. Right now, I think it is a great time to be a scientist and be a woman as well. Compared to, say, like, 50 years ago, that was a statement that I probably wouldn't have made.
Right.
So there's been a huge shift in how science is conducted, and how science is sort of like encourages women to be more involved. And there's so many programs now that exist out there that enable women specifically to be encouraged into scientific careers. And also the ASIP, for example, have women in pathology. So we have events. We even did for the month of May, the Behind Our Science podcast celebrated women in pathology and women who were science. And in fact, because one of our co-hosts, Roberto, is not a woman, he actually decided not to be in that podcast for that whole month. So we really wanted to showcase and put the spotlight on women specifically. And so I think there's a great space for it now. And also there are programs, I participate in a lot of programs that have specifically been tailored to high school students who are girls. And so to show them exactly so back in the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, where I did my optometry degree, actually, in fact, my mentor, Professor Michelle Madigan, invited me to participate and volunteer my time to be part of the UNSW science events. We had this event, Women in Mars, that was actually at the Sydney Opera House, which is so amazing. So I was like, of course I need to go to this. And they were like, they actually had displays of rovers that they would probably see at Mars. And so that was amazing. And for our portion of the kind of like education portion, we had an interactive display of all these things related to optometry and vision science. So that was encouraging high school girls to consider possibly a career in optometry and visual sciences. So that was really fun. And then I've also participated in other events to encourage high school students in particular to consider that a career in STEM, because that is something that at the end of the day, we just want to support and encourage more people to get into this really fun world of science and just get involved and put some gloves on, mix some things. And just I'm always encouraging students to volunteer their time in labs, because guess what, you get that experience. And you might even, if you're lucky, if you can get yourself a paper, your name on a paper. And that's happened for, I'm not even joking, this has happened for high school students who have managed to get their names on papers because they've volunteered their time during the summer, for example, when they have time off. I wish I'd done that when I was in high school, because I would have gotten a peer-reviewed journal article by then. So yeah, high school students nowadays, they're so just like excited to delve into this world. And I think the only thing stopping them is just not knowing that it is possible to volunteer their time at a lab, because labs are just, very excited to take on these students, train these students, teach them all these laboratory techniques. And I also encourage undergraduate students to do so as well. There are, I think 3 currently in our lab, on and off, that will come in and just, volunteer a few hours a week. And again, that is that experience that they can take with them. And in fact, that's what inspired me in the first place, is because I was an undergrad volunteering my time in a lab, and then that inspired my career, my entire career. So those are great experiences to have, and just to put yourself out there and just inquire if they would accept possible internships in a lab.
Right. No, this is this is all this is like gold, I would say, like for students, and it was very inspiring to especially, you know, not, you don't have to stick to academia. There are a lot of people who are contemplating academia, and you know, they're also trying to look out for other avenues. And like, I think with social media and the ongoing pandemic, there've been a lot of parallel fields that have evolved in the last 3 years, and they seem to be viable career options. And I think just one needs to just figure out what their strengths are, and then tap into this, and then figure out what they want to do. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. I think we spoke about like some of the most interesting topics, especially in terms of eye diseases, and you know, the whole concept of science communication, and how to build an online presence, and why it is important to have an online presence. I think that's the need of the hour. But thank you so much once again, Daisy. It's great to have you at the end of the year. I'm glad you're the last guest for this year, and I wish the best of luck for your postdoctoral research, and to your you know, to your science communication projects. And hopefully I get you back on my podcast with maybe like a new discovery that you make in your research.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sandhya. This has been such a fantastic experience for me. Just sharing all this and talking to you. This conversation has been so amazing, and I'm excited to hear what the audience thinks, and hopefully inspire a lot of scientists into the future. And yeah, I'd be delighted to come on again. It was such an honor to be part of this show. All the podcasts have been, like, all podcast episodes have been so fantastic, and it's great to join in on the great guests that have been on in the past, and hopefully, yeah, come on again with some new news to share.
Yeah, that's a goal. So the audience, I'm going to be linking Daisy's Twitter account and her other, you know, her website, and other social media links. So feel free to ask her if you have any questions, or you can leave it in the comments. And I'm also going to be linking up the suggestions that she made, so you can click that and get more details. And I hope you all have a great new year, and we'll get back to you in January with more such interesting topics, and keep you know, science interesting. So nothing is rocket science, and be curious and stay curious. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.